Here is my preliminary reaction to the marathon record breaking speech by the Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi in the Parliament this evening. First of all, I want to congratulate him on making a marathon speech, and all the more so given that he had to do so in an atmosphere of hostility, I would say lack of civility. But to his credit, he persevered and he stated what he wanted to state, which does not surprise me because I've always associated Modiji with tremendous willpower. And that was once again in evidence. I also want to welcome the positive note that he struck towards the end of his speech, where he, somewhat uncharacteristically, I thought, extended a beleaguered invitation to the opposition parties to join him in taking the country forward. I think it's an invitation, if well meant, worth taking very seriously, and it would be very disappointing if cynicism prevents the opposition parties from lending their constructive cooperation to whatever is in the best interests of the country and the people if pursued by the party in power or the coalition in power. But in this video, I want to particularly express my disappointment, very strong disappointment, at the way the opposition parties conducted when the Prime Minister was speaking. He was booed and jeered. His speech was attempted to be disrupted or drowned in cacophony from start to finish. And I have to say that I was deeply disappointed. And I must state why I'm disappointed. The opposition parties have complained in the past that the Modi government is distinguished by a spirit of intolerance, by its refusal to take anyone other than itself seriously, by its inclination to treat others with scant respect. And therefore, they also made a lament, somewhat well-founded lament, that the democratic culture of the country was being eroded. Because the hallmark of the culture of democracy is the respect extended to dissent. And you must expect the opposition parties to differ from you if you are in governance. And therefore, an attitude to governance and an attitude of parliamentary practices which is characterized by irritation with and intolerance of those who differ from you or those who are in dissent is hardly democratic. And I'm afraid the last, that is the 17th Parliament, left much to be desired in that respect. Now circumstances have changed. The people of India have become wiser for all that they have witnessed in the last 5 years. In their wisdom, they decided to strengthen the hands of the opposition parties. And they did so not because they wanted the parliamentary proceedings to be in a state of continual or perpetual logjam or stalemate. They did so in order to reinforce the culture of democracy in which they believe, and they assume that their best interests are taken care of by the democratic form of government, which is characterized by the accountability that those in authority must have and must honor towards the people at large. So, the opposition parties could have done much better by allowing the Prime Minister to speak and express himself, no matter how harsh his words would have been, how unpleasant the allegations he would make. And everybody knew that he would make allegations. Everybody knew that his words would have the cutting edge. Because that is, after all, Narendra Damodar Das Modi. And Dissent actually means accepting a person who differs from you as that person is, what and all. Tolerating those you like is not a culture of tolerance. Um, Tolerating those who are different from you, those who work against your interests, those who irritate you, that is true test of tolerance. So, if the opposition parties have a genuine grievance that governance, especially in the last 5 years, was not characterized by the sort of spirit of tolerance that should have been obtained, their well-founded or ostensibly well-founded grievance in the last 5 years has been somewhat belied by their own display of intolerance towards the Prime Minister in the present session. I hope this doesn't continue. In this context, let me once again quote a few words by Voltaire, a quotation that I've already shared with my viewers, but this quotation bears repetition. Voltaire said, "I do not agree with what you're saying, but I will defend with my life your right to say it." That is the spirit of true tolerance. That's the spirit of democracy. And that's the spirit in which I would like to see the parliamentary business transacted in the coming 5 years. So, in my opinion, the opposition parties did not cover themselves with glory by showing this inveterate intolerance towards the Prime Minister. Whether or not his past conduct deserves it is a different issue. After all, there is a point at which we have to effect a break from the past. The present and the future are more important than the lapses of the past. Ultimately, I would like the opposition parties and the treasury benches to realize that the parliament is not about proving who is stronger, who is weaker. It is not about running a boxing ring where one party defeats the other. The Parliament of India, if it's the chamber of democracy, it should not be seen as a place where parties are in a state of continuous warfare. It should be understood by both parties as a place sanctified by the shared commitment on both sides of the aisle to promote what is in the best interest of the people of India. And this attitude of inveterate hostility towards each other, resisting each other, denouncing each other, criticizing each other, simply for the reason that one is the opposition party and the other is the party or coalition in governance, shows a rather infantile attitude to public responsibilities. And I have to say that the people of India will get fed up with this. And I would appeal to both sides of the aisle not to do anything which would erode the people's faith in democracy or inject the public mind with cynicism concerning the health and wholeness of the Indian body politic and governance in India. Now, while I welcome Sri Modi's invitation extended towards the fag end of his marathon speech to the opposition parties to join him in an arrangement of cooperation, presumably in a state of mutual trust and respect, I have to say that he did not bother enough in this very speech to create a climate which is conducive to it. Perhaps old habits die hard, and he slipped ever so often into the habit of criticizing the opposition parties, and particularly being less than charitable to the opposition leader of the opposition, to say that Rahul Gandhi is a dull-witted person or a person of infantile intellect, especially after his performance in Lok Sabha yesterday, which rattled everyone in the governing coalition, I think, is rather cheap. That's something that Modiji should have avoided, because the more the Prime Minister of India states what strikes everyone as uncharitable. After all, people have seen the performance, and I've been sampling responses from people in all walks of life And I tell you that the impact that Sri Rahul Gandhi's speech has made is simply astounding. Astounding is the word. And then to follow that up by the Prime Minister saying that this was an infantile performance, I believe is rather unfortunate, and it doesn't do him any good. But unfortunately, it has become habitual. The old word papu had to be discarded because it has ceased to be acceptable to the people. So a change in nomenclature has been brought about without changing the sentiment, which is rather disappointing. If the Prime Minister wants constructive cooperation from the opposition parties, he has to unlearn his old habits and relearn a new approach. And for the sake of Indian democracy, for the sake of the people of India, for the sake of the dignity of the country, I sincerely hope that he would care to do so. And if he sets his mind after it, he would be quite capable of achieving it, even if this strain is deeply ingrained in his public conduct, his character, if you like. But given the fierce determination of will, strength of will that Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi is capable of, I do not put it beyond him to be able to de-school himself in respect of this habitual vituperative criticism, which is not based on facts of the opposition parties, hoping that somehow the magical power of words will win the day for him. Those days are gone. The public has seen through a lot of things. It will not work anymore. And once again, I congratulate the Prime Minister on this marathon performance, but obviously he was not in his full flow, and I could not have expected him to be in his full flow, given the fact that he had to continue to speak against a volley of protest, which was sustained. The chorus of protest was sustained all the way through, and it takes extraordinary willpower to continue with his speech to the extent that he did. And I thought towards the end, he got a grip on the situation and his voice prevailed over the cacophony with which otherwise the august hall of the parliament reverberated. So, on the whole, not a particularly pleasant situation. At the same time, being a person of incorrigible optimism, I do hope that better sense will prevail and that both sides will realize that this state of chronic confrontation is to nobody's advantage and that there is no electoral or political mileage in ruining the prospects of the country through infantile quarrel. What is truly infantile is not the speech that Rahul Gandhi made or Sri Modi has made. What is truly infantile is this culture of habitual opposition, chronic conflict, and the determination to see nothing but ill of each other. This is infantile, there's no question about it. We can afford to be a little more mature than this, and I say this about both sides of the aisle, and I look forward, therefore, to better days in transacting the business of the Parliament and providing good governance to the people of India. Surely, the people deserve better. Jai Hind.